Hello, viewers. Welcome to another episode on Wanga Sports Palaglam. So, this is the Premier League 12th man show where we want to recap the PL season so far and how mid-table teams have done really well so far in the Premier League, and the top six sides are struggling at the moment, and a basic general recap of how the season has been. So, today with me, I've got three guests. Hari is joining us from the US. He's a diehard Arsenal fan. And we have Sukin and Anirudh, who've been on this podcast before, and they are diehard Manchester United fans. So, as we all know, this season of the Premier League has been a topsy-turvy one. Due to the coronavirus, Premier League season has been really cluttered in terms of fixtures. Players have been playing almost every week, and that has led to a lot of injuries. And also, players, because they are not in a secure bio bubble, they've been exposed to the coronavirus as well. So a lot of teams, not just the top six teams, but a lot of teams have been affected by players and their unavailability due to infections and injuries. So we would like to talk about how the PL season has been so far. So starting off with Anirudh. So Anirudh, what do you make of the PL season so far? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, just as you said, so it's obviously been a very stop-start season so far. There've been a lot of teams who've tried to hit some form, tried to gain some momentum, but largely you can say, apart from say Liverpool or Leicester, there's not been any other team which have really gone on a proper. And obviously, we've seen sides like Southampton and Aston Villa, funnily enough, go on proper winning runs and get some proper wins also. But in general, the traditional top six: United, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, and who else? Arsenal. So these guys have obviously not been at their very best this season. So it's been a season of mixed runs so far. Teams are still trying to. I mean, I think we're 7-8 games into the season, and teams are still trying to find their way into the season. So obviously, as you said, things we are heading into a very busy schedule, and this schedule will probably till December end will probably determine how the season goes after that. Because now is when you have a game every couple of days, and with the busy schedule, you obviously have the cases, corona cases, as well as multiple injuries springing up for different players also. So teams which manage to do well in this period will stand well in terms of trying to end the season well also. So obviously, it's a very crucial period which we are heading into so far.
Yeah, those are some very valid points, Anirudh. As you said, this has been a really hectic season for all teams. Man management has been a very crucial factor in determining which teams are doing well in the current moment. As we see, Liverpool is a prime example of the heavy injuries that they have faced, not just for Liverpool, but even for other teams. We're seeing people getting infected with the coronavirus, and now Liverpool is one of the teams that has a long list of injuries for almost all of their key players. So coming to Sukin, what do you make of the PL season so far? What are your initial thoughts?
ஸோ ரெகுலரா எப்பயுமே ஸ்டார்ட்ல டாப்ல இருக்க டாப் சிக்ஸ்ல இருக்க டீம்ஸ்ல சிட்டி அண்ட் லிவர்பூல் தே டூ வெல். மற்ற எல்லாருமே கொஞ்சம் இதாலாம் ஆரம்பிப்பாங்க. பட் இந்த வாட்டி பார்த்தா ஈவன் லிவர்பூல் இந்த இன்ஜுரி, சலாக்கு, கோவிட் இதெல்லாம் வச்சுட்டு இப்போ அந்த ரோடு ஹெட் ஃபார் தம் இஸ் வெரி டஃப். ஈஸி கேம்ஸ் அப்படிதான் இருந்தாலும் தே ஹவ் லாஸ்ட் தேர் என்டையர் பேக் லைன், அப்புறம் மெயின் கோல் ஸ்கோரர் சலா அவங்கலாம் லூஸ் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. ஸோ அவங்க கஷ்டமா தான் இருக்கும். மற்றபடி ஷாக்கிங்கா வந்து வில்லா, சவுத்தாம்ப்டன்லாம் தே ஆர் டூயிங் ரியலி வெல். ஐ தாட் சவுத்தாம்ப்டன் தே லாஸ்ட் ஹோஜ்பர்க் டு ஸ்பர்ஸ், அப்புறம் ரொம்ப கஷ்டப்படுவாங்க அப்படின்னு நினைச்சேன். இங்ஸ் வந்து போன சீசன் மாதிரி இந்த சீசன் he can't continue the goal scoring form அப்படிலாம் யோசிக்கிறப்போ without him playing one game they are on very good position this season. So yeah, it's a game of 38 games. It's a league of 38 games, but இப்போதைக்கு அவங்க நல்ல பொசிஷன் தான் சொல்லலாம். as for other teams like Spurs, United, Chelsea, அவங்கலாம் வந்துட்டு இது சாம்பியன்ஸ் லீக் ஆடுறாங்க, யூரோப்பா ஆடுறாங்க. அதனால கொஞ்சம் இன்ஜுரி ஆகுது. திடீர்னு கோவிட்ல பாசிட்டிவ் ஆகி அதுவும் பாதி பேர் உட்காந்துடுறாங்க. இந்த மாதிரி இன்ஜுரிக்கு கஷ்டப்பட்டுட்டு வருத்தப்பட்டு இருந்தாங்க. இப்போ கொரோனாவும் இன்னொரு சைட்ல போட்டு ஆக்குது. ஸோ ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா தான் இருக்கும். இந்த சீசன் வந்து கொஞ்சம் ஸ்கில்லு, டேலண்ட்டு, அதெல்லாம் தாண்டி லக்கு பிக் ஃபேக்டரா இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு.
Yeah, Sukin, those are some very valid points. நீ சொன்ன மாதிரி luck is going to be a huge factor because we're seeing it with some of the big sides. They're losing key players, and the other smaller teams that do not have any European commitments, they're doing well because their players are not getting exposed to foreign conditions and being in positions where they definitely have a lot of exposure. So coming to Hari, so Hari, given that you are an Arsenal fan, what do you make of Arsenal's start in specific to this season?
Yeah. As far as I'm considered from an Arsenal point of view, it's not been the best start. It's but we can also blame it on the fixtures. The first 10 fixtures was not easy for us, and we I think we came off better because I don't know. It's just that it's too early for me to say into the season, but eight games, 4 games won, 4 games lost, and two of those were against City and Liverpool. And 2 games that I thought we should have won at home to Leicester and Aston Villa, but due to some poor management choices, I think we lost those games. But otherwise, I think we, on the whole, like the club is headed on the right track, in my opinion. I think we are in a safe hands with Arteta. But let's see. I'm very, very undecided about Arsenal season right now. It's just topsy turvy, as Anirudh says, for every other team, and there's nothing that is a guarantee because this might be the worst Premier League ever or the best Premier League ever because everybody seems to be doing well. Is it because everyone at the top level is bad, or is everyone at the bottom level improving? Nobody knows. But it's good to see that it's not a two-horse race anymore. And from an Arsenal point of view, I'm just very undecided as of now. It's a decent start in my opinion. We're doing not that bad, considering how much Arteta has had time at the helm. But I think 10 months into the job, he's learning. We are learning about him. He is making mistakes, that's for sure. But I'm hopeful he'll learn from it, and hopefully by the end of the season we'll achieve our targets.
Yeah, those are some very optimistic words, Hari. As you said, yes, the bottom place and the mid place teams are racking up the points, but the big six are not actually capitalizing on games that they should have won. So, yeah, as you said, it is not a question. It is definitely a question of whether it is the mid table teams and lower place teams doing well, or the big six faltering at crucial stages. And I'd also like to pick on one other point you mentioned, that the two-horse race is no longer seen, and that many other teams are competing. I think that is something the Premier League also needed, because in previous years the Premier League has been one of the most highly competitive leagues in the world. But off late, it's just been either Manchester City or Liverpool. So I would not mind a new team becoming a champion this season. So coming to Anirudh, what is your take on Manchester United's hot and cold season so far? I mean, you've been brilliant in European games. You've taken on some of the most, uh, I would say, terrific attacking sides. You've put them to the ground. But then with a team with games that you should have won, especially at home, you faltered, and some games have been very pathetic. So, what is your take on that?
Yeah, you touched on the home form. Largely, our home form was very good under Solskjaer since he came in December 2018. But off late, last 6 games we've not won at home. Last 6 Premier League games we've not won at home, which is a ridiculous record considering the fact that we are supposed to dominate at home, and you'd expect us to do well at home, right? But whereas we've gone on a record-breaking away win of 10 or 11 wins, which we've never done before ever in the Premier League era, even during our greatest times under Ferguson and all that, we've never done that kind of run, which is also pretty remarkable to say. But then obviously our home form has been very disappointing. And in general, I'd say that the first three games were very, very poor. The games against Crystal Palace, Brighton, and Tottenham. Obviously, Crystal Palace and Brighton, we were completely unfit. The guys weren't ready at all. After an extended season in the Europa League in August, we clearly were not match fit at all, and it clearly showed in both games. Somehow we managed to win against Brighton. We probably didn't deserve it. And Crystal Palace, we lost. And then, of course, the Spurs game happened. The Spurs game, obviously, it was a 6-1 loss, but personally, I felt the red card obviously tilted the balance, and after the red card, obviously, you can't really do much. And Spurs, to their credit, took their chances and put us to the squad. And then after the 6-0, I mean, after the 6-1 loss, obviously pressure was definitely on Solskjaer in terms of the European games and the tough run, which was from the last international break to this international break. We had a run of very tough games, and it obviously started off with Newcastle, and then we had a couple of really good wins in the Champions League. Obviously, a very historic win against Paris again in Paris, and obviously we beat RB Leipzig also 5-0 very comfortably at home. And then, of course, came the Arsenal game. The Arsenal game, all of us were very expectant, and as you said, it was a very disappointing game. I mean, we performed really poorly, and I know we lost through a penalty, but then we genuinely did not deserve anything from that game. We did not show anything going forward, and it's not like we defended. Like it's not like we tried to defend and play on the counter attack, but we had the ball, we tried to attack, but we just weren't good enough on the day, and Arsenal completely deserved the win. And at that point, there were serious questions because immediately after that, we had a freak loss against Istanbul as well, and then obviously just before the international break, a tough game away to Everton, who had a good start to the season, but we obviously put up a really commanding performance against them, and we managed to secure the win. In terms of United season going ahead, I mean, if you look at the grand scheme of things, we're just 6 or 7 points off the top with one game in hand. So it's not like things have gone too far ahead, but it's very important in the next say 3.5, 4 weeks till the end of December, rather, so around 5 to 6 weeks, where there's a game every 2 days and you've got to win. It's a very tough period. I know that. I mean, not every team will win every game, but we've got to ensure that we're going to proper run here, because if we fall short here, there's no way we come back after December this time around. So we obviously got to go on a big run here, and if we go on a run, anything can happen. Personally, I don't want it to be another top four battle. I'd rather get nowhere close than just to get to a top four battle. It's not about top four, top five, or top two, or whatever for me. I want to get to a point where we are within touching distance or within 5 to 6 points off the top come end of December, and heading into March, April, I want to have some hope, however less it may be. It may sound unrealistic right now, but honestly, I'm tired of United lowering their standards year in, year out. So I hope that things will be different this time. But there have been some positive signs, and I really hope our guys really going to run, because it's not been a great season so far, but there have been a few positive signs. So there's something to build on. So let's see what happens going forward.
Yeah, Anirudh, those were some very valid points. As you said, United's form so far has been topsy-turvy. There have been some unreal performances, but there have been performances that have been really shambolic for United standards. So yes, it's going to be a very tough season ahead, but hopefully with the better squad depth that you have this season compared to last season, I think United definitely have a better chance of competing at all levels. So I'd like to talk about two London clubs now. One, of course, is my favorite, Chelsea. So we were the highest spenders in the transfer window. We've enforced our attack with some really impressive signings in the form of Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner, and Kai Havertz. We've got a stopback CB solution in Thiago Silva. And for me, the signing of the season so far has to be Eduardo Mendy. Yeah, I mean, he's just come in and he's pushed Kepa out. Not sure. I guess Kepa was already out, but now he's ensured that he is going to be Chelsea's long-term goalkeeper. And with these many clean sheets in his first few appearances for Chelsea, I think what he's done is he's given Frank Lampard a lot of confidence that the defense can definitely hold up against high-pressing teams. And with respect to the attack, well, it's been, I would say we have not yet played our best front four. From my point of view, our best front four would be Christian Pulisic on the left, Timo Werner as striker, Hakim Ziyech on the right wing, and Kai Havertz as the playmaker. this is the front four that almost all Chelsea fans wanted to play, but due to some reason, one or the other has been unavailable. So we've been using Tammy Abraham as striker, and then Mason Mount was used in the wings. He did not do well. Now he's gone back to his usual midfield role and he's shining again. So I think Frank Lampard is slowly uh, finding the pieces of the puzzle at Chelsea. And with regards to this Lampard in, Lampard out debate, I think it's total bakwas. It is essential to give Lampard the backing that he deserves with this kind of a transfer window. Yes, in most games, his tactical decisions at very crucial junctures in the game have been questioned. Some of the substitutions he makes, some of the players he plays in certain positions. I mean, you have to give the man some credit for actually still backing Mount in the midfield, because Mount is an exceptional player. Just because you have high-profile signings, it doesn't mean you kick out a player who's done a lot for you in the previous season, which was a very tough season in terms of squad depth. So now we have the squad depth, we have the players. I think it's just about playing the right players in the right position, coming up with good tactical decisions on field and off field. And I think Lampard will certainly thrive with the squad this season. And with Tottenham Hotspurs, well, Jose Mourinho has gotten some very emphatic wins at the start of the season. He's trying his best to manage the team, because they made some really good signings in Sergio Reguilon, Gareth Bale, and Højbjerg, and they also have one striker who's yet to debut in the Premier League. So I think Spurs have done well enough to cover some of their deficiencies, but you'll definitely have to see how they do in the long run, because they are one team that, the key players like Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, and even some of the defenders like Doherty and all have stayed fit. Have stayed fit, but now that Son, we're hearing that he's contracted the virus. So once Son and Kane become unavailable for some of the crucial games, there's definitely a question of whether the creativity and the playmaking skills will be filled in. So I think Tottenham Hotspurs for now look a solid side, but when they get a fair share of injuries and you know player unavailability, we'll have to check how good their squad depth is. So now coming to Sukin. So Sukin, even though a United fan, I would like you to talk about Liverpool, because they are the defending champions, but the kind of season they had with the 7-2 drubbing at Villa, and then of course the huge list of injuries that they're facing. I mean, how do you think Liverpool can recover from this situation?
Yeah. So Liverpool had a decent start to the season. அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து the Aston Villa 7-2 hugely wrecked them தான் சொல்லுவேன். ஸோ அந்த சைக்கலாஜிக்கல் இதுல இருந்து அவங்க திரும்பி வரலன்னு தான் சொல்லலாம். பிகாஸ் அதுக்கப்புறம் தே பிளேட் எவர்டன் அண்ட் ஆஃப்டர் தட் தே பிளே ஷெஃபீல்ட். ஸோ இந்த ரெண்டு கேமே எடுத்து பார்த்தாலும் தே ட்ரூ எவர்டன். ஆஃப்டர் தட் ஷெஃபீல்டு கூட செகண்ட் ஹாஃப்ல 2 கோல் போட்டு தான் ஜெயிப்பாங்க. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஹாஃப்ல வந்து தே காட் அப்சல்யூட்லி பேட்டட் பை ஷெஃபீல்ட் அண்ட் தே லாஸ்ட் தேர் பிளேயர் ஆஃப் தி இயர். அப்புறம் என்டையர் பேக் லைனே லூஸ் பண்ணாங்க. கொரோனா, இன்டர்நேஷனல் பிரேக், இதனால சோ மெனி ரீசன்ஸ் ஃபார் விச் தே லாஸ் தேர் பிளேயர்ஸ். ஆஃப்டர் தட் ரீசென்ட்லி சலா டெஸ்டட் பாசிட்டிவ் ஃபார் கொரோனா. ஸோ இவ்வளோ பிரச்சனை இருக்கிறப்போ இட்ஸ் வெரி வெரி டஃப். எந்த ஈஸியான ஈவன் பிரீமியர் லீக்ல 18-19 இதோடய இந்த டீம் வச்சு ஆடுறது வந்து ஐ திங்க் இட்ஸ் வெரி டஃப். பிகாஸ் யூ டோன்ட் பிகாஸ் யூ ஆர் கோயிங் டு ஸ்டார்ட் வித் மில்னர், மட்டேப், the new signing some Tsitsipas and some academy guy as a back four for 2-3 games. ராபர்ட்சன், ட்ரெண்ட் வரதுக்கு முன்னாடி இவங்கள வச்சுதான் வந்து ஆடணும். ஸோ இவங்கள வச்சு திருப்பி மென்டலி ப்ரிப்பேர்ட் ஆகணும். திருப்பி அவ்வளோ இந்த நவம்பர் டிசம்பர் பீரியட்ல மிட் வீக் கேம்ஸ்லாம் இருக்கு. ஸோ ஐ திங்க் இட்ஸ் வெரி டிஃபிகல்ட் ஃபார் தம் டு ஈவன் வின் அகேன்ஸ்ட் ரெலகேஷன் டீம்ஸ் ஆர் சம்திங். ஸோ அட் திஸ் டைம் யோட்டா ஹேஸ் டு ஸ்டெப் அப் டு ஃபில் இன் சாலாஸ் ஷூஸ். அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து எப்படி ஆடுறாங்கன்னா எனக்கு பார்ப்போம். பட் டிஃபென்ஸ் ஐ டோன்ட் திங்க் இந்த இதுல இருந்து அவங்க வேண்டைக் போனதுல இருந்தே தேவர் வெரி லைக் வெரி டவுன். பட் இப்போ எல்லாருமே போன அப்புறம் எப்படி ஆடுவாங்கிறதான் தெரியல, பொறுத்துன்னு தான் பார்க்கணும். ஸோ யா, ஐ டோன்ட் திங்க் தே வில் வின் ஈவன் 75% of the games in November December period. But let's see what happens.
Those are some very valid points, Sukin. As you said, the squad depth of Liverpool is going to be put under the sword. They've lost a lot of key players, and one of the major reasons why they were very successful last year was because their key players stayed fit throughout the season, and they were able to play almost all the crucial games and rack up those many points for Liverpool easily. So it's going to be an interesting season for Liverpool. Coming to Hari, so Hari, one team we haven't touched upon is City. City have also made some high-profile signings this season. How do you think City are doing so far in the league, and where do you see them progressing in the next 2 months?
Yeah, as far as City is concerned, I think they how do I put this? They are rebuilding. Okay, I think Pep is, for the first time, he has to rebuild a squad. He is having a lot of difficulties. We've never seen Pep do this, because Pep comes in, stays for 3 years, gets all the players he wants, gets 3 titles, runs off. And this is the first time I'm seeing Pep taking on an actual challenge. They have lost their stalwarts and David Silva, Vincent Company, and Aguero being injured for most of the season, and they're trying to make do without a striker, which I think is very hard, because if you've seen a few of the games, you can see that they're clearly missing the striker. Like, for example, the Leeds game, which was an example. I think um, they they just didn't know what to do once they reached the final third, and otherwise, City, I think are a very good team. They still have the quality. They still play the good football. They still have very, very good players in their team. But this season, I think it is mostly about rebuilding. They will finish in the top four probably, just because of how good they are. But apart from that, I don't think them. I don't see them posing a serious title challenge as of now. And they should do fine. But I think they have to find their rhythm back again without some of their previous players. And hopefully Pep figures it out, because good for him if he does. If he not, there are a lot of people waiting to prove he's a fraud, and I hope for Pep's sake he figures it out.
Yeah, Hari, those are some very valid points. As you said, they're not getting as many goals as they did last season. So all of a sudden, the goals have dried up when it comes to City, and that has forced them to play a lot more defensively. So I guess it's going to be an interesting season for Pep as well. He'll have to show some results for the kind of signings he's done, and also he's got to keep hold of the players that are currently there in the squad, just so that he can show that Manchester City also has ambitions, not just in England but also in Europe. So coming to Anirudh, there have been a lot of dark horses this Premier League season. Carlo Ancelotti's Everton have been high flying ever since the first game week. Same goes for, I wouldn't say the same goes for Southampton, but Southampton have come back really well after the first couple of games. And Marco Bielsa's Leeds were one of the highly hyped teams going into the Premier League season. They have done extremely well. I would say they've definitely lived up to the hype of their high press and high attacking football. So, what do you make of these dark horses in general?
Yeah, so as you said, first starting off the Everton obviously had a great start of the season. They made some very interesting signings. They got the likes of James Rodriguez, Alan Doucouré, Ben Godfrey. So they obviously reinforced their midfield mainly, and obviously, so they clearly wanted to show some sort of ambition and try to ensure that they're a club which moves forward, because they've spent some money in the last few years, but you could say most of their signings didn't work out, and some of the managers couldn't just get the best out of those players. But this time around, they obviously got a world-class manager, a guy who's probably has a lot to prove, because he wouldn't have expected to come to Everton say 5 years back, right? He would have expected to be at one of Europe's elite clubs. But the fact that he's come to Everton shows that his stocks have fallen a little bit also. So he's also obviously very determined to do well. So Everton, they obviously had a good start, but then you can see that their squad depth's pretty much non-existent. You have Richarlison, who has a 3-game ban, and apart from Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, they don't have many goals in their team. You've obviously seen the injuries to James, Lucas Digne, and Seamus Coleman also affecting them very badly. And they've gone on. Coming into the international break, they've had 3 losses in a row. So clearly, they are a team which started off well, but they have things to figure out. And this long this next 5-6 week period will definitely test them, because you've got a game every 2 days and it'll definitely put them under pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how they finish. I personally don't see them finishing in the top six no matter what, but obviously we'll have to just wait and see how they do. Coming over to Leeds United, as you said, obviously there was a lot of talk about Marcelo Bielsa, how he'll do in the Premier League and how his style of football will fit in. They obviously had a very roller coaster start with Liverpool in at Anfield in the first game. They probably deserve to get at least a draw in that game. They played really well, and in general, they've had some really good results. But then, obviously, in between, they got beat by Crystal Palace 4-1, and there are teams which are trying to expose them. But for a promoted team, I think their aim should probably to obviously first secure their status for the next season in the Premier League and probably try to finish as close to the top 10 as possible. I think that's a realistic target. They obviously have they spent to an extent, but they really didn't have that much money to spend, and their squad is also obviously having a few players who aren't ready to play at the elite level in the Premier League. So obviously they are a team which are in transition and they'll need a little more time to say again push for say top eight, stuff like that. So they need a little bit of time, but they've started off pretty well for a promoted side. And obviously there are a couple of other sides who have also started off well. Wolves and Leicester, two sides who've managed to reach European football in the last couple of years. They've obviously had a pretty decent start to the season. Leicester are obviously top of the league right now, and they managed to the fact that they have Europa League and they still are managing to get some positive results in the Premier League shows that they are a side which is moving forward very nicely. Same with Wolves also. They've done well so far. They've had a couple of iffy results against Newcastle and Leicester. They drew and lost, so they'll be slightly disappointed because they played pretty well in those games and probably didn't deserve to lose and draw in those games. But they're a very well coached side under Nuno, and they'll definitely be a threat to top six. I won't be surprised to see someone like Wolves break into the top six. So those two teams are looking pretty well. And of course, we've got the two major surprises of the season mainly so far. Southampton and Aston Villa, two teams. Aston Villa pretty much got away from relegation on the very final day. If anything, they were favorites to get relegated heading into this season also. But then they made some very interesting signings. They got in Burton Traore from Lyon. They got in Ross Barkley on loan. So, and they also got Matt Cash as a right back. He's done really well for them this season. And of course, we've seen the quality of Jack Grealish. He's absolutely top class player. He's a player who many big clubs would love to have, and he's a player who genuinely makes the difference for them. And the way he's linked up with Ross Barkley as well as Ollie Watkins, he's had a really good start to the season as well. They've had some very impressive results, beating Liverpool, beating Arsenal. They've obviously had a few results, but that's something you expect from a team who aren't at the elite level, right? But they've still had a very positive start to the season. Same with Southampton. If you saw the start of the season, they lost to Crystal Palace, and then a couple of weeks later they got battered by Spurs as well. There was some pressure on Hasenhüttl, but he's gone on a 5-game winning run after that. So they are also a team which is doing really well, and it'll be definitely interesting to see all these different top 5 or 6 dark horses teams who could potentially try to break into Europe and even further beyond. So yeah, definitely this period again very important again, because these teams are the teams who probably don't have the very great squad depth that the top 6 have, and it'll definitely put these guys under pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys cope with the next say 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, Anirudh, those are some very valid points. As you said, the dark horses have definitely started off well, and the point you touched upon the point that they do have a decent squad depth, but do they have the attacking replacements for the same? That is definitely going to be under question. So I just want a quick 30-second roundup from each of you as to what you expect from the next 45 days of the Premier League. Leading up to the New Year is always a crucial period for the Premier League. There's always a saying that if you lead by Christmas, you generally go on to win the Premier League. So, Sukin, starting off with you, how do you think the next 45 days are going to be for the Premier League?
Yeah, so big teams like United, Liverpool, everyone have European fixtures also in between in midweek. So it will be very difficult without proper squad depth. I think it will be difficult for teams like even Liverpool, even United and all. So let's see. Liverpool with those injuries, I don't think they will be at top 6 or anything after December even. I think Chelsea will go on a good run. Chelsea will go on a good run, and I think they will come around top 3 or top 2 after this run. And small team like Everton with their injuries, and looking at Ings' injury for Southampton, I think those two teams will struggle. So out of those teams, I think Villa might stay up, and Chelsea and maybe City or United will go off the table.
Yeah, those were some very valid observations, Sukin. So, Anirudh, coming to you, what do you make of the Premier League's progress in the next 45 days?
Yeah, obviously, we've already touched on the fact that there are a lot of games coming up. We got, I think, 10 or 11 games in the period of just 40, 45 days. So it's definitely exciting for all of us. So for all of us fans to watch these games. And for the top six, again, tough period because you've still got the European fixtures going on at the same time. So I think, but mainly for the top six, focusing on them, anyone who's got aspirations of fighting for the league, be it Chelsea, Spurs, United, Arsenal, whoever, or even finish fighting for the top four this season, they've obviously got to go on a proper run now. Obviously, they've had iffy results each of the teams so far, but if you really want to compete, at some point there will be a team which will go on a run. So if you want to stay along with that team, you need to pick up some consistency and show some performance levels which will show that you are ready. And as far as the dark horses we speak, also we'll have to wait and see whether they can hold up what they've done so far. They've obviously had a great start to the season so far, but then it's going to be a tough period for them. So very exciting times ahead. So we'll just have to wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, that was a quick gist of what you expect, Anirudh. Thanks a lot. Hari, coming to you, what do you make of the fixtures leading up to New Year, and how do you think the Premier League will shape up?
Yeah. Um, it's been firstly from an Arsenal point of view, I think we've gone through the worst set of worst set of fixtures in the beginning of the season, and I think it gets a little bit relaxed, even though Arsenal can lose to literally any team. So I'm not like really looking that far ahead, but I'm saying take a game at a time, and I hope like we'll pull off all the necessary results at least against teams that we should beat. As far as the whole league is concerned, I don't know, because injuries, like looking at Liverpool, looking at City, their strikers getting injured every other game, and looking at all the other teams who have so many injuries. I'm just thankful that Arsenal don't have that many injuries, and nobody has contracted the virus as of now. And so I'm let's see. It's going to be a very interesting season because with such a tight schedule, I think anything can happen. Any team can win it, and it's very exciting as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thanks, Harry, for posing your expectations for the fixtures till New Year. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot to my guests, Anirudh, Sukin, and Hari Krishna for taking the time out and being a part of this episode today. So we have a lot of football content coming up. We are planning to do some shows on FPL as well. So please do subscribe to our Twitter handle, V underscore sports podcast. We are now on YouTube as well. So please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So we'll be continuing to post audio podcasts as well on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts and Anchor. And yeah, please press the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest episodes. So thanks a lot, and yeah, bye bye.